Hello, I'm Lisa Rana and welcome to another Assemble This video. Today's card is all about using metallic watercolor paints on black cardstock. They just really pop against the dark background and make for one stunning card that could be for any occasion, but today's is going to be for a birthday. I'm featuring the flower bouquet from Girl Truly, which lends to some really easy watercoloring. And then the birthday sentiment from Good Things with Wings. Both of these sentiment kits are by Unity Stamp Company. I have all my supplies ready to go, and I'm going to be starting by stamping out on the black cardstock. I'm using that big floral image from Girl Truly, and I'm using some Versamark embossing ink, and I'm just stamping in the upper corner here and doing a couple layers just to make sure I got a nice solid image. I did prep my black cardstock with an embossing buddy, so that just protects the image from stray embossing powder, just reduces the static and just makes for a smooth surface. So when I tap all that embossing powder off, it'll only stick to the Versamark ink. So now I've moved my paper around in my MISTI and I'm going to stamp in the bottom corner down here. Again, just using Versamark ink. This is the best ink for embossing. It'll stay sticky and wet really long, so it'll really grab that embossing powder. And then moving just one more time so I can cover the background of my image, just kind of rotating the stamp a little bit so I get a little bit of different section of that floral image. There's 3 buds on that image, so I just kind of want to grab a little bit of each area. Perfect, so I'm done stamping and now I'm just going to use some gold embossing powder. I really like the idea of metallic on metallic, so I'm using gold embossing powder to really kind of outline the image, and then we'll fill in the blossom and the floral image using some metallic watercolor. So just pouring this on and then tapping off any excess. The anti-static powder bag really helped to release all that extra embossing powder. And then now I'm just going to heat set that with my heat tool. Perfect. I just love how that gold pops against that black background. Next I have some vellum, just a strip, and I'm again using that Versamark ink and just stamping my sentiment down on some vellum and then adding that same gold embossing powder over my sentiment. I like the matchy look of that, and then I just heat set that with my heat tool as well. I did prep that with the anti-static bag as well, just to make sure any excess powders did slide off. So next we're just going to paint in that big floral image using some uh, Kuretake Gansai Tambai watercolor paints, and I'm using just the silver from this set. I've never used it before. It has a nice silver white quality to it, so we're just gonna paint that over the entire image here, and I love how it's going to pop against that black background. I wasn't 100% sure how it was going to turn out, so I'm really pleased with the effect. And I'm just doing a nice overlay at this point, just a real light painting, and then we're going to go back in and create a little bit of dimension, adding a second layer, and that creates more opacity and just again just some contrast between the light layer and the second layer that's layered on top to create that contrast and kind of mimic some shadowing. You can adjust the opacity of this ink by adding more liquid or more water, and then letting it dry and going back over with a second layer. So I'm varying the contrast here by picking a little bit up with my baby wipe, and then I'll do a second layer here starting now and kind of adding a little bit of shadow in the corners and leaving the center of the blooms a little bit lighter so more of that black cardstock comes through. And then once I was happy with the way they looked, I just added some splatters by picking up that excess ink and splattering it over the top. Just creates a little bit of more sparkle and shine. So here's our sentiment all stamped and embossed on some vellum. I have a second sheet of vellum that I'm just going to tear the edges, and I'm using the strip of sentiment that I have there as a guide, so my torn lines are a little bit bigger than the sentiment panel. And I'm just going to add some glue to the back and wrap it around. That way we don't see any glue behind the vellum. Just a great way to adhere vellum without seeing glue. Going to do the same thing with the sentiment panel, just layered on top. I like the way the layered vellum created a nice opaque background for that sentiment, so it really popped against all the watercolor and the gold embossing against that black cardstock. I really wanted it to stand out against that background. So now that we're done, we're just going to adhere this panel to the front of our card. Super easy, just by adding some glue to the back. And here we go. Here is our finished card. I love all that metallic shine from the gold embossing and the silver metallic watercolor. It all just pops beautifully against that black cardstock. I'll have all the supplies listed in the description of this video. Please give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. If you have any questions or sweet comment, post below. I love to read each and every one. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time. Bye.